Okay.
Okay, thank you so much to everybody for attending today. I'm Ann Bossler. I'm the chair of the City of San Diego Commission for the Arts and Culture. I'd like to ask my colleagues on the commission, if you would, please keep your video on throughout the meeting to remain as accessible as possible to our audience. And I'll ask the same of the participating city staff. We appreciate that. Now we're going to do a quick roll call, please, to confirm commissioner attendance. If you would, when I call your name, please unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Rebecca Smith.
Present.
Thank you, Commissioner Blevins. Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner DeZenzo. Commissioner Friedman. Is he with us? Is he trying to unmute himself?
I don't think he is. Let me see. No, I don't think he's with us yet.
Okay, if everybody who's not talking would go ahead and mute themselves, that would be really helpful because we hear the background and then we think it's somebody trying to talk. Commissioner Tyler Hughes.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nawana.
Present.
Wonderful. Commissioner Abe Hughes.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Kim.
Present.
All right, Commissioner Martin.
Present.
Okay, Commissioner Moctezuma. Commissioner Opstead.
Present.
Okay, Commissioner Philpott.
Present.
Okay, and Commissioner Polito.
Present.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you for your attendance. It has been noted. Also joining us today are city staff, including our executive director, Jonathan Gluss, our chief of civic arts strategies, Christine Jones, our project manager, Bel Reza, and senior public art manager, Chuck Miller, as well as senior arts and culture funding manager, Kip Eischen, and civic art project manager, Dr. Laura Bullock. If I could, I would now like to call on Commissioner Philpott to please read the Commission for Arts and Culture Statement of Purpose and Vision, which we will find right here on our Zoom screen. Commissioner Philpott, are you able to read those today?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I didn't know that you called on me. I'm sorry. I was waiting like, okay, who's going to do that? Yes, our statement of purpose and vision. Our vision is expanding our world by celebrating creativity in San Diego. The purpose is the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture serves in an advisory capacity to the mayor and city council on promoting, encouraging, and increasing support for the region's artistic and cultural assets, integrating arts and culture into community life, and showcasing San Diego as an international tourist destination.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And if we could, before we get into today's agenda, Belle, would you please run down some of the guidelines for today's meeting?
Of course. So in an effort to provide greater accessibility, members of the public may now join the webinar as attendees, and that is in order to provide virtual non-agenda and agenda comment in real time. Commissioners, city staff, and authorized presenters are attending as panelists. The meeting will function for you as to any other typical Zoom meeting. As a refresher, just please remember to keep your camera on. Please remember to keep yourself muted unless you're speaking, and to unmute yourself when you're going to speak, and then to use the chat window to signal when you'd like to speak. Just enter speak into that chat window. It should be used for nothing other than signaling when you'd like to speak, and this is to comply with Brown Act. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. We will now move on to our non-agenda public comment. The public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via a web form accessible through the agenda and the commission's website. Members of the public may also join this meeting as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comments in writing via the web form, Staff will read aloud public comment submitted per city public comment protocol. I will call on Bell to please read aloud any non-agenda public comment or to call on any attendees who would like to provide such comment.
Thank you, Chair Bosler. Nothing was submitted in writing, but to those members of the public in attendance, please click the button to raise your hand and indicate that you'd like to comment. I will enable you to speak, send you a prompt to unmute yourself in order. When I call your name, please state your name for the record and you will have 3 minutes to provide comment, after which you will be placed on mute again. Please raise your hand now if you would like to provide non-agenda public comment. And seeing none, Chair Bosler.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes from our October commission meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion to please approve those minutes?
Actually,
Commissioner Ofsted,
I have a correction. Sorry. This is,
if you'd go ahead and type speak into the chat, that would be great. Commissioner
yeah,
Ofsted.
sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Friday, October 28th, 2022 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have a second? Commissioner Smith?
And I can second that motion.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. We now have a motion and a second. At this point, we'll go into discussion. Commissioner Nawana, did you have a correction?
I did. I emailed Bell about it. I was marked absent for the last meeting. Can that be corrected as well as the meeting before that? If that can be corrected, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I believe you might have come in maybe a little bit late past action
Okay.
items, but I can take a look at that and see if we can make that correction.
And Belle, it's okay if you need to note that somebody was there for certain action items and somebody wasn't, just to make sure that it's clear kind of who was voting and why certain votes were or weren't taken. That would make sense.
Okay, we'll do moving forward.
Okay. Let's see, any other discussion before we take a vote? Okay, seeing none. Again, I'll call your name, and if you would please respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. And please remember that you do not need to have been present at the meeting to vote or to discuss. Commissioner Smith,
Yay.
Commissioner Blevins,
Yay.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yay.
Commissioner DeZenzo, Commissioner Friedman, Commissioner Hughes,
Yay.
Commissioner Nawana,
Yay.
Commissioner Abe Hughes,
Yay.
Commissioner Kim,
Yay.
Commissioner Martin,
Yay.
Commissioner Moctezuma, Commissioner Opsted,
Yay.
Commissioner Philpott,
Yay.
Commissioner Polito.
Yay.
All right, and my vote is a yay as well. Thank you so much for that. And now we are going to move on to the Arts and Economic Prosperity study presentation. The San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition has been contracted to lead the audience intercept survey portion of this study. And Felicia Shaw, the board chair for SDRAC, is with us today to give us a brief update. Felicia, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great. There it is. There's my slide presentation. Well, good, almost afternoon. It's really great to be here and to see so many familiar faces. Again, I'm the board chair of the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, and we are pleased to partner with the San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture on the Arts and Economic Prosperity Research Project. This project, which is taking place here in the city of San Diego and other cities throughout the county and the entire country, is organized by Americans for the Arts, a national arts advocacy organization. And this is the 6th time they're in AEP 6, the 6th time the study has been done over the past 25 years. Next slide, please. So before I begin, just a little background on the coalition for those of you who may not be familiar with our organization. For more than 30 years, the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, which we call SDRAC for short, has been honored to serve as the voice and advocate for San Diego's creative sector, covering the entire San Diego County. Our members include artists, nonprofit arts and culture organizations, and individual arts supporters. We envision the greater San Diego region as one in which government, education, business, and residents value, support, and fully integrate the arts and all their diversity into the fabric of civic life. And we do this by convening our nonprofit arts community. We connect them to resources and to each other through networking opportunities. We communicate by sharing information, and we serve by doing projects like this one in terms of research. Next slide, please. So AEP6 is the largest and most inclusive study of its kind ever conducted. This year, it includes 394 participating communities from across all 50 states, plus the District of Columbia. It's designed to change the conversation about the arts away from the idea of it being a frill to one as a powerful economic engine and community builder. The data we collect will provide the measurable data, the receipts that we need to demonstrate that nonprofit arts and culture organizations are in fact businesses that drive commerce to other local businesses, that attracts tourists who stay in our hotels and bring our community together at a time when we need it most. Next slide, please. So the last time this national research project was conducted, AEP5, which was 2017, AEP5 documented that the nonprofit arts industry generated $166.3 billion in economic activity. That's the spending by organizations themselves, plus the event-related spending by their audiences. If you hear hacking in the back, it's my dog. She has allergies. Sorry about that. And this AEP5 supported 4.6 million jobs and generated $27.5 billion in government revenue. This data was collected from a variety of communities across the country, including small rural towns, suburban neighborhoods, large urban cities like our own that have diverse populations ranging from 1,500 to 4 million residents. This is impressive and compelling data. Since its beginning, the AEP series has demonstrated that an investment in the arts provides both cultural and economic benefits that are worthy of our attention and our support. So with all the changes that have occurred in our cultural community due to the pandemic, it will be interesting to see what stories the research data will tell us for AEP6. Will our numbers shrink considerably, or will they be larger? I just can't wait to find out how we're faring now as opposed to 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago. Next slide, please. So our research process has been fairly straightforward. SDRAC has been contracted by the Arts Commission to recruit, train, and deploy a team of data collectors who intercept patrons on site at local museums, theaters, festivals, and concert halls, and we ask them to complete our survey. We use a paper or online survey. The patrons answer a series of 13 questions that capture data related to their spending. For example, we ask questions about how much did they spend on the tickets themselves? Did they spend any money on parking, dining out, retail shopping? Even did you spend any money to hire a babysitter to attend the program? All the information is anonymous and obviously voluntary. We don't pay for anyone to fill out the surveys. One important change this year that I'm really excited about is the centering of equity and inclusion as a critical component of the methodology. Americans for the Arts is requiring all participants to ensure that 25% of the data we collect is captured from BIPOC representing organizations. They want to create a baseline of information that paints a more accurate picture of our diverse cultural community than we have in the past. And this is challenging to get a lot of this data, because whereas you could go to a museum, say in Balboa Park, and it's always going to be there. But to capture some of the data from our grassroots organizations, their pop-ups, they may be in one particular place for one day, but not for several more months. So it's a little bit more challenging getting to them, but I think it's going to be worth it to get this more accurate picture of what's really happening in our communities, in all communities. And then, so after we collect all of this data, the participant data from the actual people going to the events will be combined with the organizational data. A lot of the data that you collect in the applications for funding, OSP and CCSD. And this together will provide a complete picture of how the nonprofit arts and culture sector functions as a powerful economic engine. Next slide, please. Well, actually, go back to that slide, I'm sorry. So our goal, given the size of the city of San Diego, is to conduct 800 on-site surveys by May of next year. Although we got off to a slow start due to COVID, I'm confident that we will reach that goal. At the conclusion of the study, every participating community receives its own customized report based on our local survey data, which we can use in our advocacy efforts over the next several years until it's time to conduct the next study again. While we have many great stories to tell about the value of the arts and how it makes us feel, this hard data on how the arts create jobs, generate commerce, and increase revenue appeals to those who hold the purse strings and so we want to speak their language by giving them the data that they are most interested in hearing. Now, next slide. So I've worked on AEP studies several times throughout my career. And while it's a rewarding process, it's never easy. Getting organizations to sign up to allow us to be on their premises and interview their patrons and getting people to actually fill out the surveys, it can be a slow and challenging process. You know how you feel yourself after you get out of the opera or leaving a museum. You're ready to get to your car. You don't want to stand around and fill out a survey. So it can be hard getting people to slow down and fill out the surveys. So we need all the help we can get. And this is how you can help us. First, we ask you as commissioners, and you're out and about, going to a lot of different organizations and seeing what's going on. First, be an AEP6 ambassador and encourage any cultural group in the city of San Diego that you know to allow us to be on site and survey their patrons. If you serve on the boards of any arts organizations located in the city, particularly those BIPOC organizations, bring it up during a board meeting and encourage staff to participate. Let us come on site and conduct these surveys if they haven't already done so. We can also use help recruiting more data collectors. Our team of 4, they're really great, and includes a project coordinator and 3 data collectors. They're really great at getting out there in the community, but you know how much stuff goes on in the evenings and the weekends. If we had more data collectors, we could probably cover more ground. So if you know anyone who would be interested in this really cool job, it's not a volunteer post, by the way. We pay $22 an hour and we reimburse for mileage. Have them contact me through staff, and I would love to interview them and see if they're a right fit for this, this very temporary position, which ends next year, but I think it would be great for the right person. And then finally, you can help us by, when you're visiting any of the local arts institutions over the next few weeks, and you see the AEP6 data collectors out there on the job, stop, say hi, introduce yourself as a commissioner, and then fill out the survey yourself. You'll be helping us get to our 800 survey goal even quicker. So I really enjoyed having a chance to tell you about AEP6 is underway right now as we speak. And I would appreciate your support moving forward over the following weeks and months. Any questions?
Felicia, thank you so much for that. We do have a few questions. Commissioner Abe Hughes.
Yeah, thanks, Felicia, for the information. It's really helpful to understand how we could participate in this. One of the things that I just wanted to ask and to highlight here is that it sounds like the focus is really on nonprofit institutions. And I get the goal here. The goal is to demonstrate how much the arts contributes to an economy such as ours. And I find it a little bit of a gap if we don't include some of the for-profit arts organizations as well that participate in the arts economy. And here I'm talking about, for example, something that I just recently saw in New York, the Christie's and Sotheby's auctions. One auction alone was $1.5 billion, right? That famous auction from, from the Microsoft founder. But in general, there's billions and billions of dollars being transacted in auction houses every year. There's also the art fairs, and there's all of the for-profit galleries. All of those contribute immensely. And I would say the number is probably double the amount that you cited there in the last survey. How can we capture that so that we really truly get an accurate reflection of how much arts contributes to the economy? And that's just fine arts. I'm sure there are other areas in the other kinds of arts as well, performance arts, music, etc.
Well, I want to thank you for recognizing that the story that we will tell through this research project is still an incomplete story when we talk about the creative sector. We have a little asterisk by the numbers that we come up with, and we always say these are very conservative estimates of what's happening in the full world, right? Because it doesn't include the for-profit community. And since its beginnings, Americans for the Arts, which sponsors the research project, have always explained that they have intentionally limited the research project to the nonprofit community. The fact that they're extending their purview to include more BIPOC organizations, which often aren't incorporated, makes me feel good. That means that they're expanding, thinking a little bit more broadly. But those are the parameters of the research project as set by Americans for the Arts. And I believe that they probably have a good reason for not wanting to include the for-profit community. Jonathan, did you have something to add to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. Abe, that's a great question. The space that you're referring to is actually going to be captured or is captured in our creative industries study, which first one that we did was about 3 years ago, and Christine Jones will report later in the meeting that we've just contracted the Workforce Partnership to capture the data on the economic activities of the whole sector, for-profit and nonprofit. At the end of the day, this study, which is an initiative of Americans for the Arts, is an advocacy tool to encourage public investment in nonprofit arts. So it is a really narrow window by design.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, let's see here. Commissioner Kim, did you have a question?
I do. I have a few questions. Hi, Felicia. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. And I apologize in advance if you did mention the answers. So maybe these are just more for clarifying. When you ask us to reach out to various nonprofits that we may participate in or attend, what kind of participation are you looking for from their end? Is it simply just...
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's good for you to know that it's not a heavy lift on their part. For example, we were at the Museum of Us. As a matter of fact, they were one of the first museums that allowed us on the premises. They just need to give us permission to be there so that you don't show up and they shoo you off like you're selling Amway or something. You're there for a purpose. And they can be also be really helpful by telling their patrons that it is okay, not just okay, but a good thing for them to fill out the survey, so they can be advocates. When we were at San Diego Opera, I think the director made a little speech from the stage, like, you're going to see some surveys in your seats. Please fill them out, and here's why. So that's their lift, basically. But in some of our larger institutions, it's there's more bureaucracy to go through to get them to say yes, because they're concerned about safety or security or things like that. But in the smaller institutions, it's mostly one person says, yeah, come on over, we welcome you, no problem. So that's what I mean. It's not a lot of work at all.
Well, I appreciate that the data collectors are getting paid as well. That always helps. And I also regret that I didn't know about this, because the San Diego Asian Film Festival, as you know, they have thousands of patrons over 12 to 15 straight days, and it just ended last week.
Yes, we missed Pride, we missed Comic-Con. But
however, there are, events that are coming up next year. So what is the timeline for this? And then my last question, I'll just add my last question, which is there any kind of mechanism or process in place to ensure that these data collectors are in fact going to arts nonprofits that also reflect the diversity of our community? Because they could all end up at some, certain higher budgeted organizations, but how do we know that they're—
Well, that's where our team comes in. I'm working with Jonathan and his staff to make sure that we're identifying these groups, because as I said in my presentation, some of these groups aren't yet receiving Arts Commission funding. They're off the grid. And so it takes our own intelligence to kind of know where they are. It takes people like you saying, hey, there's this cool group, but it's a pop-up and they're very grassroots, but they're doing great work in this community. They're going to be here this weekend, only this weekend. Come by and make sure that you capture their data. Our numbers aren't going to be huge with those types of groups. It's not going to have a lot of tourist dollars, probably, because tourists don't know about it. But what it's going to do is put them on the map so that we're painting a fuller picture of what's really happening. That was another question that you asked about.
the timeline?
Oh, the timeline. Yes. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up in May. So all that great Juneteenth activity we had last year, we won't be able to capture that. But I believe that between now and May of next year, we're going to capture some great data with some great organizations. And I'm really depending on you guys to send me an email. My email is fleeshaw@gmail.com. That's F as in Frank, LEESHAW @gmail.com, and say, hey, this is happening this weekend. Get your team over there. They need to make sure that they collect data at this particular event.
Wonderful.
Felicia, if I could add on to that, thank you for all those comments. Also, Bell is working directly with Felicia and SD-RAC on this initiative. So if for some reason you can't get to Felicia, just feel free to reach out to Bell and she'll get the information over to Felicia.
And before I get off, I just want to thank many of the organizations that have already stepped forward. I mentioned Museum of Us, San Diego Ballet, Moxie Theater, Women's Museum of California. We've been so appreciative of those who have welcomed us and made it easy for us to get the ball rolling. We have a lot more to go. Thank you so much for inviting me. And
Felicia, don't jump off just yet. If you have time, we have some more commissioners that have
absolutely.
questions. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was being rushed. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Polito.
Hi, Felicia. I just wanted a clarification when you're talking about BIPOC and inclusion and diversity with regards to the survey. Is it a different survey or are there questions embedded in the survey that addresses? I just wanted a little bit of clarification on when you mentioned that as something that's going to be captured. How's it being captured?
No, sir, there aren't different questions at all. And actually, that's kind of a great suggestion. The questions that we have, the 13 were given to us by Americans for the Arts. We're not asking those groups anything different than we would the patrons coming out of the Museum of Art or, San Diego Opera. They asked the same questions. Did you did you buy anything? Did you take the Uber over? Did you, stay in a hotel? All that is the same.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see here, Commissioner Tyler Hughes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good to see Felicia. A couple of questions. I know you said this is going to miss Comic-Con, and it's going to miss the Asian Film Festival and a few others. Is there an opportunity because you had mentioned that there's some online surveys as well, is there an opportunity for those organizations to share surveys out to the wider universe and capture some of that data?
Gosh, I wish we could do that. They prohibit online.
Okay.
They're called intercept surveys for a reason.
Okay.
The person right there on site. God, we could get this over with tomorrow if we could just send them out in the mail, but nope. And that's what makes it so hard, because it's 13 questions, but they're kind of hard questions. Some of them, like, how much did you spend on a restaurant or a hotel? And people are scratching their heads trying to remember what they spent, or maybe not wanting to reveal that. So if you had 500 people in a theater and you were standing outside, you would need a legion of data collectors to slow them down and capture, get anyone to participate. So we put some of the surveys on the seats. Hopefully they'll fill them out during intermission and turn them in, but it's really hard, but it's not impossible, but it is challenging.
And then a secondary question, and this is more for the organizations. Do we capture any of their endowment funds that are being invested in the broader stock market? If we're looking at economic activity, then those organizations are making direct investments in stock and bond market, and that goes into the larger economy of the US. And it'd be interesting if we could capture and memorialize that as well, in addition to the number of finance jobs that are supported here in San Diego through management of those funds.
I'll let Jonathan, you can answer that, because that's your part of the research.
Yeah, thank you, Felicia. So just to step back for a little context, there are two very distinct components to this this survey. One is the audience interception, and that's what SD-RAC is doing under Felicia's leadership. The other half is an internal survey of the organizations themselves from a financial perspective. And the numbers tend to be about 50-50. And by that, I mean, the last time we did this in 2017, it was roughly $1 billion of economic activity for San Diego. And about 50% of that was audience spending, and about 50% of it was the spending by the organizations. So Bell is leading up the surveys for the internal financials for the organizations. And specific to your question, yes, we do ask about endowment activity in that.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, and especially Felicia. Thank you so much for
There's
being
a
here with us
question, I'm
today.
sorry, from Dahan. Dahan, could you state your question again? I wasn't quite clear what you were trying to ask.
As you stated, like Juneteenth and cultural festivals and galas, like say the fraternities and the sororities, their annual galas, there are a lot of things that happen in the community and lots of money. I could think of, quinceañeras or something like that, and lots of money that's spent. Will there be a disclaimer or any mention that this go round, we didn't necessarily incorporate that, but
Well,
anecdotally
actually,
it exists?
Dahan, as I was saying, this is the first time we're going to attempt to capture that data. They have a very intentional equity and inclusion agenda. It is baseline information for this first round. So we're just collecting data. It's not comparative because we've never collected it before. But once we get this baseline data, we'll start to see trends and start to better understand the depth and breadth of what's happening in all of our diverse community, even those small grassroots organizations and programs and activities. So that's a good question. And please let me know if there's anything happening that we should be at, and I'll get those data collectors over there.
It just all starts in May, you end in May and it begins May, June, July. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the cultural things happen in the summer.
Well, they actually started later than that. It didn't, they didn't have quite a whole year, but I get what you're saying. We got a slow start. The whole country did because of COVID. So we're going to do the best we can to catch up.
If I could just do a quick clarity there, Commissioner Blevins, this private events and fundraising events are not eligible. So quinceañeras would not be eligible. Galas that are ticketed for fundraising purposes would not be eligible. These are publicly accessible activities and events.
So we are looking at festivals. That would be parades, things like that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. And as a reminder for all of the commissioners, in addition to this work with Felicia and by SDRAC, Belle is coordinating the financial surveys from the organizations themselves, and Belle is our liaison to the other cities in the county that are also participating. It's all super important work, and we thank Felicia and Belle and all of the other folks for just all the time, effort, and energy, because this is really important information that helps the overall good. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. All right, now we're going to be moving on to our committee reports. And we're going to start, if we could please, with Commissioner Smith and policy and funding.
Of course. Thank you, Chair Bosler. I have a very brief update, and then I also do have a question that I would have put out in the Policy and Funding Committee meeting. And a question directed to Jonathan. Chair Bosler, should I wait until his remarks later, or should I at least just put the question out now and then we can wait until later?
Please feel free to put the question out.
Okay, so brief update, we did not meet in November, but we are absolutely excited to get a full report later on about the applicants for this round. And then also really excited about panelists that we get to just continue the work that we're doing. I was talking to Amani recently about how we as commissioners used to sit on those panels and we don't anymore. So we really look to the community to do that on our behalf. And like I said, just really excited about that process as we move into that season. We are looking forward to also in December for our committee meeting. And as I said before, commissioners, even if you're not on the Policy and Funding Committee, please join us. We are going to be hosting some representatives from RISE San Diego, really awesome organization, and they will be doing a presentation for us on capacity building for our nonprofit organizations. That's my update. And then I will put the question out there. So no surprise to commissioners who've been at the table for a while. I've been talking about World Design Capital since way back. And I wonder if, I don't even know, this is probably happening when I was taking a walk. If I could ask Jonathan, if there's a way that we can maybe explore the idea of the monies that came in, the 4.75 million to be exact, that was announced by the city back in late August. If that's something that we could possibly explore as something that could go towards World Design Capital funding. Drop the mic and I'll stop there. You're laughing, Jonathan, because you can see me. I'm on a walk and I'm thinking, how do we do this? You know me. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, I need to ask about that, right? About that funding. And all I saw on the press release was the city council will be approving the allocation of funds. But since that's not an OSP or CCSD process, right? I'm thinking, how do we use those monies? So I will stop there, and can I wait for your remarks so we can make sure that the other reports can go?
Of course.
This gives you
Happy to
time,
do
too,
so.
Jonathan, to go, oh, she just threw that out there, but I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, now we're gonna move along to, actually, before we do that, what's the date and time of the next policy and funding meeting in December? Do we already know what that is? I'm looking through my calendar and I'm wanting to make sure that folks that want to jump into that meeting have it available.
Should be on the 9th of December, right? We always go second Friday. I'm looking to see
So
if
noon, so right now noon on the 9th is when
on
that meeting
December 9th,
for
right?
commissioners that would like to be able to attend.
Yes.
Okay,
And
next
Kip
up.
says yes in the chat.
Okay, terrific. Next up, Public Art Committee. Let's see if we could please get Commissioner Opstead to give us an update on that committee.
Thank you, Chair Bossler. There were no action items for the November 4th Public Art Committee meeting. We received a presentation for and provided feedback to the schematic artwork proposal for the Byer Park Public Art Project by Ingram Ober and Marisol Rendon. Marisol couldn't join us, was not able to, was setting up actually a gallery display at, I believe, Bread and Salt, but had a lovely conversation, really robust conversation, and the entire committee was really excited to participate and have great question and answers with the artists themselves. And our next Public Art Committee is tentatively scheduled for Friday, December 2nd at 9:30, and that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Tyler Hughes regarding advocacy and outreach.
Thank you, Chair. Our next meeting is scheduled for December the 2nd at, do you have the time in front of you? I just don't have that right in front of me. I think it's at 8:30 a.m. Really excited to hit the ground running as we move forward with this next round of advocacy to our elected officials for full funding of OSP, CCSD, as well as pushing forward on Pending for the Arts. Bell has been hard at work reaching out to our friends in the staffs of these elected officials to get on their calendars. Part of this was delayed just by virtue of the election and waiting for some seats to be filled. And so we're going to be able to make introductions very early in their terms and really lay the case for not just keeping the status quo, but increasing. So very excited about that.
It looks like we might have a question from Commissioner Abe Hughes.
Yes, question in this particular area, and if we need to put this in new topics, happy to do so. But we've had an election here in California where there was a favorable outcome for arts funding, right? And it's a significant amount of new money. It's on the order of over $1 billion, I think it is. And my question is, when can we address as an organization here our fair share of that, and how can we possibly make sure that we're doing everything possible to advocate and reach out, and should we be appointing one of ourselves to be on that, if there's a commission that's formed to divvy up that money, all of the above. It's a question for the committee chair here, or Jonathan, maybe you have greater insight into this, but discuss that. And
Commissioner Hughes, and I say that only because it's fun to say Commissioner Hughes. It's an excellent question. It's actually one I had posed to Jonathan as well. And the clarification came from him that this is solely for education dollars, meaning that these monies are going to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but these monies are going to flow into the coffers of the educational institutions of California, including San Diego Unified, Sweetwater School District, et cetera, for use in arts and culture. Now, that's not to say that they won't have monies available to hire in organizations that we support and that we can fully advocate to the school districts around us to hire our organizations, et cetera, but there is no new pool of money that we can pull from. And Jonathan, please correct me if I'm misinterpreting anything.
No, that's exactly That's exactly right, Tyler. But what I would like to offer is the director of Create California, which is the statewide advocacy organization for arts education, could make himself available to attend one of our upcoming meetings. And perhaps along with Russ Sperling, who's the director of VAPA at San Diego Unified School District. We'd be happy to arrange the two of them to give you all more of an in-depth. I can tell you at this second, a lot of the details are to be determined. Some very basic questions are such as whether or not capital can be funded with this is yet to be determined. So happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Abe Hughes, for the question. And Jonathan, thank you so much for the response. I think that would be great if we could add that to the agenda, hopefully for the December meeting. As I understand, this is going to be rolled out into the schools in the fall of 23. So they have a pretty short window of time to accomplish quite a momentous task. So for us to be able to stay involved and to be able to understand and support as we can, I think would be great. In addition, as I understand, there's some big efforts going on currently with Russ Sperling and UCSD and others around arts educators and having an opportunity to recruit more folks. So an update on that would be terrific as well. Commissioner Blevins, did you have a question as well?
Yes, one of the conversations that we've had for years is that there's a lack of programs. So it's great for the funding to be coming, but if there are no programs to fund, is there any kind of way that our advocacy or that can be, embraced as part of the conversation? Especially with VAPA, I mean, there's literally a crisis with looking for technicians to do sound and, things of that nature. And it should become, there used to be a time where SCPA did that for the entire city.
I think that's a great point, Commissioner Blevins and Jonathan. It seems that the opportunities for Russ to speak to us are growing. I know, I personally know that there are some pretty amazing opportunities that are happening. I also know that the school district, at least San Diego Unified School District, is doing a comprehensive evaluation of all arts and music happening during the school day as well as after the school day throughout the entire district. So I think it would be great to have Russ Sperling, who heads up VAPA for San Diego Unified. And Jonathan, maybe we can talk offline and see if there's others that would be good, because I think this is an important topic that's only going to get strengthened through these resources, but it's a very salient point in terms of what is happening, what can be supported, and for folks to have their arms around that, I think is going to add some levity and also be informative. Okay, at this point, let's go on and move to Commissioner Friedman, if we could, for any update with respect to the Commissioner Engagement Ad Hoc Committee.
Yes, we did not have a meeting this last month, but I'm projecting a meeting on December 8th. I'm going to coordinate that with Bell to make sure there are no conflicts with that. And one of the purposes of that meeting is going to be to come up with some sort of strategic plan in which we have events that are specific to commissioners and which we can all get together at certain museums or dance opportunity performance areas in which we can participate in those activities as a group, and just to try to, Bell has done a terrific job in sending out all the information with regards to what's going on and what is available to commissioners to attend. And so they're certainly aware of that, but I really want to try to get together with my particular committee to see if anyone has any other ideas by which we can kind of organically grow the activity, the committee within the community. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Let's see here. Before we're getting ready to move on to the director's report. Before we do so, is there any public comment on this agenda item, Belle? Belle, it looks like you're shaking your head no.
So sorry, I was having technical difficulties. To those members of the public in attendance, please raise your hand now if you would like to comment. And seeing none, Chair Bosler.
Okay, terrific. With that, we'll hand the floor to you, Jonathan.
Great, thank you, Chair Bosler. Wonderful to see everyone. Before I jump into that, excuse me. And I think Commissioner Philpott had a question early on. I'd like to give her the opportunity.
Of course.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I think actually most of my questions had been answered. I had a question for Rebecca about how we could access that meeting. And so I'll just send an email to Belle and get her and ask her the information. And I just wanted to also second and absolutely would love to have San Diego Unified School District and others come talk about that. But thank you. Thanks for catching that, Jonathan.
Of course.
I apologize.
No worries. So a lot to cover. I do want to thank Felicia, who I believe is still here, for spending a little bit of time with us. SDRAC is doing really so much of the yeoman's work. We will, for those of you who are newer to the commission, even though this is a narrow sliver of the larger creative sector, this data really is looked for by our elected officials. Because we're in the 6th iteration of this, it's been, the numbers are used by our Chamber of Commerce, our Economic Development Corporation, our city level elected officials, and our county officials. So it really is a valuable tool. And the other thing that it does for us is it gives us a measure against other cities of equal size or comparable size. So there is good value in the data, even though it is frankly a bit of an old model. And it is definitely used at the federal level for advocacy to support increasing the National Endowment for the Arts budget. Back to our work here regarding the cultural plan. The contract with an outside consulting team is now completed. We did not have to go to City Council, which allowed us to expedite the completion of the calendar by about 3 months. We're now working with the mayor's office on a press announcement that should go out within the next few days. Soon as that happens, you all will receive the press announcement, so you'll be among the first to be aware of the firm that has been selected. After that announcement, first thing on the list is to finalize an engagement work plan and schedule, basically what their activities are going to look like for the next 18 months. All of that will be completed in the month of December. So by our December meeting, we'll at least have a general calendar for you. And then in January, we'll be scheduling meetings for you all to meet the team. So as I said to Christine Jones a couple days ago, as we were leaving a meeting, we're doing it. It's real. So we're very excited. Second thing is the funding program, which right now is omnipresent among staff. So I want to give you a quick update on three fiscal years. For fiscal year 2022, which ended in June, We are just winding up those final payments now. About 85% of the agreements have been completed. That's more or less on schedule and what you would anticipate. The remaining 15 minutes are those grantees that are high touch. They still need to give us some final documentation. That's really just normal with this process. For FY24, we are in the cure period right now. Just as a reminder, the cure period is that small window of time, about a week, when organizations that have applied for funding in the fall have the opportunity to, we open the portal and they go in and make corrections to their financials and their application after staff has done a preliminary review. That's the
Oh,
period
hi,
of
it's
time.
Fritz Friedman, class of 74. I called
Fritz,
earlier. Hi, it's not Renee, right? Did I speak to Renee this morning?
Fritz, could you mute yourself, please?
Val, if you would mute Fritz for us, thank you.
Oh, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So we're in that period of time right now. Once the cure is over, applicants are notified if they're eligible for renewal, to go to panel, or if they're not eligible. Not many organizations end up being not eligible, but there's always a handful. So that's happening right now. The good news with cure is that we've been able to move that phase up by a full month from years in the past. We've done this so that the cure period happens before the December holidays. A few years ago, the calendar was shifted so that literally we were asking people to cure the last week of December. So we're very pleased that we're able to shift all of this earlier into the fall. I can tell you now that we received 124 applications in OSP and 77 in CCSD. That is one less in the OSP category from last year and 7 less in CCSD. Although we didn't see an increase in the number of applications this year over last year, it's important to remember that last year we had a substantial increase. So I'm taking in this as more or less, a steady number. We believe that this sustained increase is attributed to our continued efforts to reach community members as well as lowering the barriers to applying, especially the fact that we now can pay 50% upfront in the contract period, which gives the grantees a lot more flexibility. There's still a lot more work to be done to streamline this process, to make it more accessible and more expedient. Very importantly, just as a reminder also, the migration to a new software platform will happen this fiscal year. That is going to be a major step in reducing processing time. Also, reducing risk of human error on the part of the grantees as well as city staff. So that will be a major step for us. Regarding the current year contracts, FY23, we are still in process. We're still processing these internally. All hands are on deck with literally each of us working on portions of the processing. As you know, per application guidelines, we have 5 months to complete processing of the contracts. That seems like a very long time, and our internal goal is always 3 months. Unfortunately, even with all of us working on processing, due to staff shortages, we will need the entire 5 months for this cycle. We're very aware of the need to continue to communicate with the field, and on Monday, we'll be sending out another reminder to grantees of the changes to the contract process to ensure that they are informed. Because frankly, vacuum of communication, people get anxious. So I wish I had better news on that, but that is our reality right now. And then finally, as far as panels, Panel application period is now open. It is posted on all city social media platforms, and we will resend an e-announcement to you today. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, for giving a shout out for this. This really is an important time when all of the commissioners can help us build our talent pool for the panels. Regarding World Design Capital, the city delegation was in Valencia a few weeks ago to attend the final 3 signature events. Those were the Global Design Policy Conference, the biennial World Design Capital Cities meeting, and the convocation ceremony where the WDC designation is formally handed off to the city designee, in our case, city's designee. Councilmember Campillo traveled to represent the city on behalf of Mayor Gloria, along with Mayor Campillo, representing Tijuana. In all, there were about 20 of us representing the region. Here at home, World Design Capital 2024 has acquired a space at MCASD downtown that will serve as the San Diego headquarters through 2025. And a similar site has been identified in downtown Tijuana. The Park and Market site, the new facility owned by UCSD, will continue to be an anchor site as well. During this month, the WDC team is finalizing concepts for the 7 signature events that is due to World Design Organization by the end of the calendar year. That information will begin to roll out in January, at which time fund development kicks into high gear. Fund development is being led by the Burnham Center for Community Advancement. I think most of you are aware of that, but just affirming that. Now that we have this new site at MCASD downtown, we also would like to schedule a time for you all to visit that site and have a briefing with the WDC CEO, Carlos de la Mora. I'd like to pause now, and before I turn it over to Christine for a number of updates on creative economy, public art, Park Social, etc. I'd like to pause if there's any questions for me, Chair Bosler.
I believe there's a question from Commissioner Abe Hughes.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, when you cited the numbers of applications received for, I believe it was fiscal year 24, you said that pretty much the numbers are similar to prior years. And what I'm trying to do is to relate that to the, I think, very important conversation we had about diversity, equity, and inclusion in all that we do. And to me, it pretty much, an initial guess of mine would be that we probably didn't increase that if the same number of institutions applied. And so, not knowing exactly, being a new commissioner, how all of this works, I thought that one of the things that would be incredibly, I think, incredibly effective for increasing that diversity of people we impact would be if there were some discretionary funds that weren't all fully allocated that we could give to some of these smaller institutions so that they could taste what it's like to get involved. We can do grants of 5,000 or 10,000 or something, like that, to just entice them, to chum them, so to speak, right? And reach out to those people, which, as you know from our meeting, I'm really concerned about, especially the people that are invisible, right? The people that don't have a voice and that wouldn't normally apply because they just are not in the system and they're not in the flow of communication. So it's really along those lines that I want to just inquire, how could we think about that? And if you need to do like a group of us to, spend more time brainstorming it, I'd be happy to participate. But I think that we've got to, what got us here won't take us there. In other words, if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to reach out to the same audience. Now we're going to try to think about doing something differently.
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you for that. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, we have 2 issues. One is because of the city's procurement protocols, it's super, super hard to do a very small grant. We would love to see even $500 and $1,000 grants just to spark special projects, really innovative one-time things. Most cities that have grant programs like that contract it out to a nonprofit in the community. We'd love to do that. Honestly, it's a matter of getting in front of we don't have quite the staff to continue to take new initiatives on. So that's the problem, but I'm with you 100%. That's one thing. And then the other thing is when City Council changed Council Policy 100-03, and I believe that was right before you came on commission. It was 18 months ago. We have two new categories in that council policy. One is for individual artists, and another one is something called impact. And I think the impact category is also very much something you'd like to see, that you're thinking about, where it's maybe one time. And perhaps we want to, in alignment with community discussions, create a special grant category for issues around sustainability and tooling artists with some funds to actually be part of the discussion around sustainability and environmental issues, as an example. We have that possible. We literally need to have the space to draft the application, the guidelines, get it lined up with our purchasing department, and then we'd be ready to go.
Jonathan, is this part of what conversations along with the cultural plan would start to wrap its arms around and create pathways for this type of thing?
Well, the cultural plan is absolutely the policy framework that will all of this work that we're very enthusiastic to get done will have a place. So yes, the broken record will say there will continue to be a challenge if we don't have adequate staff, which I'm sorry to say most departments of the city have those issues.
My hope is that at some point that gets rectified, and at the same time to do what we can with what we have. And if there's a way that we can start to create, Belle, maybe that's you, maybe that's somebody else, kind of a parking lot of these various topics to be able to add to the conversations around the cultural plan and having them be able to dig into this. Commissioner Hughes, did you also have a question?
Question and a little bit of a comment, Chair. I think to Commissioner Hughes's point about these types of micro grants and really building out our DEI framework, and to bring in a wider community, and to what Jonathan was saying about the impact and individual grant pools. And this is something we've talked about, Jonathan, is the idea of tell us what you need to staff up to be able to do this properly. And it just goes to the point that we can't stick with the status quo in terms of funding of the Arts and Culture Commission, not just in terms of funding of the OSP, CCSD, and even of the impact in individual grant pools. It's giving Jonathan and Christine and the whole team the support of having enough bodies to do the work that needs to be done, because we can come up with all the great ideas in the world and we can get these unfunded mandates from the city council, but if there are no living, breathing bodies who can make it happen, we're going to be stuck in the same hamster wheel over and over. So whatever we as a team of advocates can do with numbers from Jonathan about, what is it going to take to do this? How many bodies do you need? And what does that mean in terms of retirement assets, in terms of salaries, et cetera, then I want to know that so we can get that done. The other question I had, and maybe this is something that we can just refer to policy and funding, was actually in reference to Commissioner Smith's question about the funds, the $4+ million sitting there from World Design Capital and how that's being allocated and used. Maybe that is a question for policy and funding, but I don't want to lose that particular thread. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on. Thank you for that reminder. Commissioner Abe Hughes, we'll also send you a link to an organization that's based in San Francisco that does a lot of, many of the municipalities in California outsource their small micro grants and individual art grants to that organization. And I'm going to ask Christine to remind me of the name of the organization.
That's great, Jonathan. I appreciate it. And we should start thinking about that, right? How can we find an arm if you can't do it, right? Because of resource constraints, and we appreciate that immensely. What are other communities doing, and how can we simply just add on to that, or go to an organization locally here to step up to the plate and do this stuff for us, right? I get
Absolutely.
it. And it certainly will be a
Absolutely.
conversation for us when we get together next. Yeah.
Great, thank you. To Commissioner Tyler Hughes' comment about California Creative Corps, and this goes to Commissioner Smith's earlier question. The Creative Corps program, we're very excited about it, is $4,750,000 to hire individual artists in San Diego County and Imperial County. It is highly restricted, however, from the way the California Arts Council wrote the guidelines. It is intended to be directed at, and you all will be very pleased to hear this, to be directed at portions of the community that have the least resources. I'm going to ask Christine in her staff report to give you a bit of an overview on that. But I will say, in regards to World Design Capital, there is an opportunity for World Design Capital to be one of the hub sites or partners for California Creative Corps. It's actually kind of a natural. So I'll pause on that and turn it, if there aren't any other questions, I'll turn it over to Christine Jones for her portion of it.
There were a couple more questions. If we have time for this, Commissioner Blevins, you had a question, and then you typed, please continue what you started, reaching out and showing the invisible why they should compete for funding and what that funding can look like.
Yeah, and just to horse you back on that, the commission literally went into the community and sort of did a commercial with people who have never been involved and felt that it was not even worth trying to be involved. Hopefully we increase that and not back away from, that the small increment and, and other people applying, that's from that effort. So hopefully we don't back up from that. We increase that and make it even more attractive and sexy for communities who are the invisible communities and didn't think they could be involved to get involved. Thank you.
If I got to answer that just quickly, thank you, Commissioner Blevins. And you'll be happy to know that, and I'm sure it's to a great extent because of your work in the council district you represent. there are a number of new applications from your district. So the word continues to get out there. I do think, to the comment from Commissioner Hughes, until we come up with a way to make kind of these micro grants, that's really what so many grassroots organizations really need and want. Much lower barrier for receiving the grant, smaller amounts of money that can be invested into really specific activities. I believe that's going to be a way that a lot of organizations and individuals who historically have not functioned or have not fared well in this process can access funds. We also know that because we have a minimum of $5,000, we have grantees that actually projects that come to us that actually would be realized with less funding, but we don't even have a mechanism to give them less money. So there's a little bit of an irony going on here.
Okay, thank you for that. And then we have one last question from Commissioner Philpott.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bossler. And it wasn't really a question, but I just wanted to go back to Commissioner Tyler Hughes. I look forward to having that discussion about capacity and staffing of the commission and the work of the Arts and Culture Commission in our advocacy subcommittee. And I can't remember already now what the last thing I was going to say, but yes, we do need to work on all of these things and getting the smaller grant mechanisms as well. Thank you.
So with that, we have lots of good news to share. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine Jones to share a lot of really positive news.
Thank you, Jonathan, and good afternoon, commissioners. So yes, positive news. So tomorrow is our last park social activation. So as you all know, this has been a citywide initiative introducing social specific public art into the city's park system temporarily. We launched this initiative back in May after a lot of work by the artists in developing their ideas and their concepts, and then actually implementing those from May till now. So tomorrow, if we would love for you to join us. Artist Timothy Murdoch's project will be featured with a dance performance. It'll be his final and third iteration of his project called Walking the Wall. It really takes the form, if you weren't able to go to see one of his performances yet, it takes the form of kind of a wall of boxes where dancers kind of build and unbuild the wall through choreography. So head out tomorrow. If you've never been to the Velodrome on the East Mesa in Balboa Park, it's a very unique venue, and that's where the artist wanted to do his last performance. So the Velodrome at Morley Field Sports Complex, so it's on the East Mesa in Balboa Park, and this performance will be happening from 2 to 5 p.m. tomorrow. And I'll share the link to the Park Social website so you can reference that in a map if you need directions or information. So hope you can join us for that tomorrow. And also, as another update for public art is that we did have the city just released in the last 24 hours 3 new requests for qualifications or calls for artists. These are projects that have already come to you with selection panelists over the course of the last couple months. But now these opportunities are out, and people and specifically artists can apply if they're interested in the projects. So again, it's a Hidden Trails Park, Willie Henderson Sports Complex, and Southwest Park. So one of these parks is in Council District 4 and the other 2 are in Council District 8. And so we are seeking artist teams for each of these projects. The artists will design, fabricate artwork in collaboration with the overall design team. So these are all connected to city capital improvements and new parks or redevelopments of parks. So the deadline to apply for artists is December 19th. There is a link on our website, which I can share with you as well, if you know any artists who might be interested in applying for these opportunities. And now we also have a new mural in the City Civic Art Collection. So you might have, if you've been to City Hall within the last, I don't know, 12 months, you may have seen a mural coming along. So M.R. Barnadas of Collective Magpie was commissioned to create a site-specific mural for the Civic Center concourse. The public artwork is located in the Civic Center and the pedestrian walkway between the parkade and the presently kind of vacant restaurant location closer to Ash Street. And so the artwork itself, the title of it's "What Do You Want to Remember About Our City?" And the artist really worked to, she chose, basically the artist chose to make every aspect of the mural in a very symbolic and municipal heart of the city, a local collaboration. So she spent a lot of time as an artist in residence at Civic Center last year and created a kind of a paint by numbers style and futuristic qualities of a mural with civic youth workshops with King Chavez students, which is really, that school is adjacent to the mural essentially, and also collaborated with the San Diego Opera Education Department to actually create the mural. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look, I highly encourage you to stop by and check out the mural. It's really quite lovely and a real good expression of the collaboration and everybody's views about San Diego's future. In addition, I wanted to share that, and Commissioner Hughes, to your point earlier, we have just contracted with the San Diego Workforce Partnership to conduct a follow-up creative economy study. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with this, we published the first San Diego Creative Economy Report back in 2020 that was using 2019 data. And it was really the city's first attempt in the region to really start understanding the creative industries here, which, as we all know, is incredibly important to the overall economy. So at that point, with that 2019 data, it was identified that there was about 11 billion in regional economic impact, and it employed about 70,000 workers at that time. So our intention with this kind of new study is to obviously understand a little bit about what happened with the pandemic, where there's shifts or changes within different industries within the creative economy, and really looking at ways to needs and opportunities of the creative economy and the creative industries and different occupations. So at that time, there was, I think, over 71 different industries that were identified and kind of studied as part of that creative economy report. So Commissioner Hughes, to your point, art dealers were in there, museums were in there, communications, architectural, interior design, publishing, printing. It really encompassed the overall picture of what the creative economy is in San Diego and how we can build from it. So this new study will really kind of analyze labor market information, do a heavy comprehensive data collection of that, and with the intent of creating a more accessible, actionable report that can really be both quantitative and qualitative, and really help strengthen and look for ways that we can strengthen the creative economy. So they are just getting started with that study, which will take a number of months. We anticipate having an actual report, which obviously we'll share with this group in the spring of 2023. So we're really looking forward to kind of sharing that data with you once it comes in that report. And then as far as Creative Core goes, so Creative Core, we are working on starting to prepare for the launch of that Creative Core program. It is a pilot and it is very dictated by a California Art Council grant. It's they have a lot of parameters around this grant that we are required as one of 14 administering organizations to follow. So our program is called Far South Border North, Artists and Cultural Practitioners and Community. And it really will provide financial support to artists and cultural practitioners. These artists and practitioners will be developing artistic content that will really increase local awareness of public health, civic engagement, climate and social justice within San Diego and Imperial counties. And these campaigns that they will scope and develop and incubate over time are really focused on uplifting communities in the lowest quartile of the California Healthy Places Index. So that is an index that's created by a state agency that really identifies very kind of lower socioeconomic areas of both San Diego and Imperial County. And those will be the areas of focus for this program. We are partnering with Catalyst of San Diego and Imperial Counties, along with San Diego Foundation and the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition to carry this out. We're in the process of contracting with Catalyst as part of this partnership. So we are anticipating having to go to City Council with that agreement in the coming month. And so we'll update you once we have that in place. Our intention is to be able to launch this program. Well, we're required to launch the program in 2023, and we'll share more details on that soon. And I think that concludes my updates for today.
Poet laureate, Christine.
Oh, well, the Poet Laureate application period closed, and we are just in the, we're in the selection process right now. There's been a mayor-appointed panel, which also includes Commissioner Polito. So thank you, Commissioner Polito, for serving on that panel. So when they will be interviewing the shortlisted candidates in the coming couple weeks, and then we'll be able to contract with the poet and then be able to announce the Poet Laureate in time for January. So their term will start in January. So we'll be able to announce that once we have a poet under contract. So more soon on that.
The ones who have submitted applications, are they all aware that they submitted an application?
They should be aware. If they submit an application, they should be aware they submit an application, yes.
So they should have received like an email or something. I have someone that's been hitting me up trying. I'm like,
Yes.
wow.
Our intention is to, our communications kind of work with different milestones within our selection panel process. So we'll be communicating with all of them shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for all of those updates. Jonathan, something else?
No, I was just going to thank Christine and all the staff for a lot of work this fall. Thank you, Chair Bosler.
Thank you so much, everybody. That Christine, you're right. Very exciting, exciting news. So thank you for sharing all of that. All right, now we're going to move on to new business for future agendas. Belle, any public comment for this particular agenda item?
There was nothing submitted and there are no members of the public in attendance currently, so no.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you've captured the topics that we had talked about throughout the course of the meeting that we've asked to have on future agendas. Is there anything else that people would like to have added to future agendas? If so, please type speak into the chat. Okay. Lastly, we are going to have the Commissioner Speed Round for the arts and culture and creativity experiences that folks have had over the course of this past month. But before we do that, Belle, any public comment for this particular agenda item?
No, there is not, Chair Bosler.
Okay, anybody, thank you for that. Anybody that would like to share something that they've been up to with the larger commission, please feel free to type speak. Commissioner Tyler Hughes.
I had the opportunity to see Frito y Diego at the San Diego Opera, and I've been going to San Diego Opera for on and off for about 20 years now, and I've never seen anything as powerful as that. It was remarkable, and that we got a world premiere like that. It's just it's a real feather in the city's cap, and San Diego Opera should be extremely proud. So that was a real treat, and got to go to the new Children's Museum Gala, and finally a reason to whip out my Canadian mask that I made when I was in college. So that was a whole lot of fun, and so fun to see so many of you there who I don't think recognized me because I wasn't wearing glasses and I had a full face mask on.
Okay, that's terrific. Commissioner Blevins.
I actually have two things. The first one is the San Diego Black Arts and Culture district has an official council now. They meet the third Tuesday of every month at the Second Chance Building. The last meeting that we had like 4 people, from the community as far as audience, and then at least 80% of the council. So things are really rolling and really exciting to be involved with that. And then the other part real quickly is I got to see the Wakanda Forever movie and the influx of the Mayan culture and that whole artistic way that they did that was incredible. So if you haven't gotten the chance to see it, go check it out.
Okay, terrific. Let's see, Commissioner Philpott.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I bookended that last week in October with attending the mariachis, the Dia de los Muertos festival at the Rady Children's Shell. That was a beautiful experience out there on the water. The Shell is just a fabulous venue for musical presentations. And then also, like Commissioner Tyler Hughes, I attended the opera Frida y Diego, and it was spectacular and it was beautiful and moving. And I'm not particularly an opera goer regularly, and I think that it introduced opera to new audiences in a beautiful fashion. And so I hope that it goes on to be tremendously successful, and that San Diego can continue to host world premieres like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Robinson.
Yes, I did not notice you. I did not recognize you, Commissioner Hughes. And that was definitely a fun night. And at the Children's Museum, which I also definitely had a great time just on the bringing my little cousins to the Los Trompos. And I also think I spoke on the CAT Museum, the Community Actors Museum, just also as Commissioner Fritz is speaking on us getting together. It would really be great to support, smaller theaters and different things, and maybe we can, create a night where we all go out and support. Also, last night I saw As You Like It, a Shakespearean play at the La Jolla Playhouse. A lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun. Definitely trans, queer, just everything. And it was just a big party. And I also would love that we could maybe create an event to go and see some different performances like at La Jolla Playhouse and different things like that. So if I get any information, I would definitely like to just pass it on to Belle and maybe get it out to us so that we can create a night that we can get together. And that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner DeZenzo.
Yeah, so I went to, it's funny because, we have these wonderful resources in Balboa Park and we tend to kind of overlook them, which is really odd for me personally, because I'm there all the time. But last month I went to the Museum of Us and the Air and Space Museum, and the Museum of Us is just an amazing location. I can't believe how much quality education that they give in that museum. And one of the, I mean, I almost left crying because of the border exhibit that's there. I mean, it was just walking into that, even just the small space was so touching and powerful with all the toe tags and everything. I was pretty much blown away and lost my mind for the rest of the tour. We did not make it to the other side. There are 2 sides of that museum, the main one, and then there's a whole like cannibal exhibit that we haven't made it to, but because they are doing this thing where you can give your email and then you get a free year of admission, we of course gave our emails, so we'll be going back again soon. And then the Air and Space Museum, you walk in there and you're like, oh my God, this is way bigger than I expected it to be. So we took a young lady who's kind of a mentee of mine, and we took her, my husband and I, and my husband, of course, being a pilot, really geeked out over everything. And then when he was explaining how helicopters work and all the ways that he could die, I conveniently walked away, and I was like, I don't want to hear any of this stuff. But it was a really great experience. And again, if you don't get a chance to go and check out those resources every once in a while, it's a good idea to remind us of what an amazing resource Balboa Park is. And yeah, anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Abe Hughes?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with everybody that I was out in New York to see my daughter run the New York Marathon, and took advantage of the trip to get out to the Hudson Valley and to see some amazing art throughout that place. And Storm King, with all of the outdoor sculpture in the fall, is a sight to behold for everyone. Fabulous. Boy, it'd be great to have a Storm King here in the San Diego area. Although we do have the nice collection up at UCSD, which I think is in that same vein. Wanted to just let everybody know that tomorrow the ICA San Diego is going to have a nice opening, bicultural. It's called Cognate Collective, and they're doing a whole discussion and artist opening up at the Encinita campus. And so welcome everybody to participate. It starts at 5:30. All the events are free at the ICA. Thanks to the generous contribution of our donors. And so just wanted to talk about that. That's it.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Kim?
Well, every year around October, November is the San Diego Asian Film Festival. And I have a special connection as the founder, but how wonderful it is. In its 23rd year, it's still around, even though I've been out of it for over 6 years. This year, they opened with this remarkable documentary called Bad Axe, AXE, that's set in Michigan. It's a documentary that was captured in real time of a Cambodian American family out in rural Michigan who owned a restaurant out there, and captured them in real time, what they went through in terms of trying to keep their restaurant open and the American dream alive. And it was pretty incredible. The entire family was out to do Q&A, which was lovely, except for the actual filmmaker, who was the son in the family. He was at the Academy because the film has been shortlisted for an Oscar. So how wonderful is that? What else? Oh, and I wanted to also mention that the executive director of Pacific Arts Movement, which runs the film festival, I believe he has now been elected as city council for District 6, Kent Lee, FYI. So we'll have a good advocate there at city council for the arts for obvious reasons. And he's been replaced by a gentleman named Henry, who was the first Filipino-American mayor of a US city in Milpitas, Northern California, who is now running the organization. So I thought I'd mention that and give them a shout out.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the Moxie Theater is looking for new leadership. The founders is actually sunsetting out of position of leadership and looking for someone. So just wanted to put it in this space. That if anyone knows anyone, definitely send them over there.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And with that, we will adjourn this very productive meeting of the Arts Commission. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend ahead and a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
You too.